Hey there, how you doing tonight? You know, we are deep into the political season and there's a lot of crazy stuff going on out there. It's very interesting and at times very entertaining. So, for me, someone who really pays attention to what's going on politically, um, I'm really enjoying this political season. And I thought tonight I would talk about inflation and I view the situation with inflation related to the climate change agenda, related to oil, and then how it impacts us. And I'm also going to talk about what I view as some solutions to this. So, and I think it's important now that I talk about this because it's election season. We're hearing a lot of stuff about inflation. We're hearing a lot of stuff about climate change. We're hearing a lot of stuff about oil and the cost of gas and, in Saudi Arabia, OPEC plus, I should say, reducing the output of oil. So there's a lot going on politically around these issues. So I thought I would talk about it with the hope that it will give folks, as you're deciding who to vote for, some useful information. Let me start off with climate change, and I think first of all, Earth's climate has been changing, forever. It's always changing. So scientifically, that's a truism. The Earth's climate is always changing. And and let me just say what I am not a scientist, but what I started doing, many months ago was, listening to scientists and reading scientists and what they have to say, about climate change, both those who believe that the climate is changing because of man's activities, and that's called anthropogenic climate change, and those who believe that climate is changing naturally, or that to the extent that man is contributing to climate change, it's not severe. So you got these scientists out there saying different things. And I will tell you this, again, I'm not a scientist, but I've read a lot. I've listened to a lot of scientists on both sides of the issues. I would urge you to do the same thing. And, if you're curious about, who to listen to or who to read, send me an email at corkymessner@gmail.com and I'll send you some links. So just listening and reading, one of the things when you do that, and what I did was just assess the credibility of these scientists. And the thing about science is this notion that there's settled science. It's just certainly not the case with respect to climate change. I know some people say it is, but even if you look at the United Nations reports, it is not settled science. The first thing that I found really interesting about the whole climate change debate is, the scientists really don't know what causes the Earth's climate to change, and in particular, what causes the Earth to warm. What causes global warming? And let me tell you why. Here are some of the factors that contribute to Earth's climate getting warmer. The activity of the sun. What's going on with the sun? Scientifically, we know some about that, but certainly not all that much. The tilt of the Earth. The Earth's tilt changes some. That impacts climate change and and the earth warming. The oceans, what's going on with the temperature of the oceans and how those temperatures are changing. Again, we know something about that, but not entirely. What's going on inside the earth, the movement of the tectonic plates, and what's going on with that, the reflection from the atmosphere, and there's many other factors. And the truth of the matter is, we really don't know how all those factors work together to contribute to the earth warming or cooling, for that matter. So, and it's one reason why when you read about these models predicting climate change, most of them are wrong, and they're always trying to adjust them to make them work, and they're just not very accurate. So there's this scientific debate going on about what's causing the earth to warm at this point. And of course, the scientists that believe it's all anthropogenic and it's carbon dioxide from man's activities, that's their argument. The other side of the argument is, wait a minute, it is not scientifically feasible to think that tweaking this one gas, CO2, by a little bit, and I'm going to talk about that now, is causing this global warming. And let me tell you what I mean by that. The Earth's atmosphere, mostly nitrogen and oxygen, there's only 0.04% of carbon dioxide in the Earth's atmosphere. 0.04%. That's all that's carbon dioxide. And the increase in that amount over the last 20 years is even smaller. So when you think about it, it might be 0.0020% of carbon dioxide from man-made, from man that has been added to the atmosphere. So the scientists that say, this is not anthropogenic climate change, will point to that, as well as that there's all these other factors going on, that it makes really no scientific sense to think that little bit of carbon dioxide is going to have that impact on the earth. The other thing they'll tell you is, if you go back in the history of the earth, and to the extent they can gather data, and the earth is millions and millions, hundreds of millions of years old, and they feel like they have, I think it's pretty good data for the last 500,000 years, and they get it through core samples of ice and various methods. Some scientists will say there is no correlation between the Earth's temperature and the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere. Some scientists will say that. In fact, not only is there no correlation, but they will say there have been times when there was like 1,500 parts per million CO2 in the atmosphere, and the earth was a lot colder than it is now. And right now, there's about 420 parts per million CO2 in the atmosphere. So I just urge you to listen to scientists on both sides and measure their credibility and see what data they provide. For me, in doing that, it was a very, very enlightening experience. And if you, and even, it's been hard for those scientists who do not think this is man-made global warming to get their information out. But so it's hard to find them. but it's worthwhile. And again, email to me. If you want to know some of the links, email corkymessner@gmail.com, and I will send you some links to some folks you can pay attention to on this. And there's some books being written as well. So then here's the other thing about it. And just think about it from a common sense perspective. We're talking about the entire earth, and it is predicted that in 2023, the worldwide consumption of oil will be about 100 million barrels of oil a day. Think about that. 100 million barrels of oil a day in 2023 will be consumed in creating carbon dioxide. So, not all creating carbon dioxide, but a goodly part of it. So think about that in the context of the Democrats are in this, are driving this great transition in America to reduce and wipe out the oil and gas industry here, in the name of climate change, when in fact, if we reduced the use of gasoline in this country by 50%, all right, and they want it to go down to zero, but just 50%, that reduces about 3.5 million barrels of oil a day. So think of that in terms of worldwide consumption of 100 million barrels a day. So so just from a pure common sense logical perspective, how is any of this in the United States really, it's going to maybe help around the edges a little bit. And in addition is to the extent that, we aren't consuming that oil, other countries will be consuming that oil. So this whole idea that climate change is this existential threat, and the world's going to come to an end in 10 or 15 years if we don't do something about it. There are other countries in the world, in the EU, trying to do something about it, but not anywhere near enough to impact 100 million barrels of oil a day. So what's going on with that? I mean, what's going on, and how does it contribute to inflation? And to me, it is an effort by the leftists, the progressives, the elitists to gain control over the American population. I mean, if we don't have the ability to move around, we lose a lot of freedom. And so the price of gasoline is way up, as you know, and it will be going up more. And I'm here to tell you, Biden released 1 million barrels of oil a day from the strategic oil reserve. When the Saudis refused to produce more oil, or OPEC, and in fact is reducing the output, Biden then said he'll release more from the strategic oil reserve. And make no mistake that all of this is simply about trying to keep the cost of gasoline down before the midterm elections. That's all he's trying to do. Make no mistake about it, once these elections are over, these gas prices are going to scream back up. They're screaming back up now, but they're going to go way up again. And I do believe that that is in part to make it too expensive for the average American to have the freedom of movement. And you know, the cost of that, the cost of gasoline is contributing dramatically to inflation. It's not the only thing, but it's contributing dramatically. And when you look at what happened, you know, at the end of 2019, the United States was producing about 13 million barrels of oil a day. Today, we're producing about 11.7 million barrels a day. Interestingly, you know, at the end of Obama's term, at the end of 2016, the United States was producing about 7.5 million barrels a day. So under Trump, we went from producing 7.5 billion barrels a day up to 13 million barrels a day, which is why you've heard we were an oil exporter at that point. And keep in mind, there's like 90 million barrels a day produced worldwide. So in the world markets, you know, this is around the edge. So, but let's look at what's caused inflation. A lot of things. The pandemic, the supply chains got clogged up coming out of the pandemic, and they're still clogged up. That's contributed to it. The price of gas and diesel has been a major contributor to inflation. And remember that when the price of diesel goes up, you know, everything's got to be transported. So that's going to have an impact on the price of food. You know, the price of appliances, everything, it's going to go up. So that's had a dramatic effect on inflation. And I saw today that the producer price index is staying up high. And as long as, you know, oil, stays up high and gasoline stays up high, it's going to be hard to get this inflation under control. And it's going to be a while. And then, of course, yes, Putin's invasion of Ukraine has impacted, you know, world inflation. No question. It was an impact, but we had a lot of inflation before then, and it just exacerbated an already existing problem. So the cost of oil and the fact that, you know, the Democrats essentially, and Biden, you know, campaigned on this to wipe out the American oil and gas industry. And they, you know, and remember, during the pandemic, the price of a barrel of oil went negative. And that was the time where Biden was campaigning and saying, we're going to wipe out the oil and gas industry. And you know, with the Biden regulations, it's very difficult to get a drilling permit now. So, you know, we have this problem. I think, you know, it's going to be expensive to heat your homes here in New Hampshire. Those who need heating oil. It's going to be a tough winter. It's going to be a tough winter in Europe for the same reason. And it's in many ways, designed, you know, to impact how we live, in my opinion, because it, you know, so the elites, the leftists, the globalists are using this fear of climate change, of man-made global warming as rationale to really change the way we live. You know, and based on what I've heard in listening to scientists, You know, the reality is the economic cost of all this, is going to be devastating in the long run. The benefits from it are going to be de minimis as it relates to climate change. And I say all this from the perspective, and many of you have heard me say this before. I'm a conservationist. I'm a conservative politically, but I'm a conservationist. We have one earth. We ought to take care of it. I mean, I do a lot. Whenever it's available, I buy up land to conserve. I don't use it. Here where I live in Wolfboro, and around the lake I live on, so we need to take care of the earth. I mean, it's important that we take care of the earth. That's just common sense. All right. But this extreme, imposition of how we live, and we hear Biden and the Democrats talk about, it's going to be painful. I think the agenda is something different than saving the earth, and it's contributing greatly to this inflation, and it is. Hi, Deborah. Well, if it's yawn, you can go ahead and get off. It's hitting the average person's savings. I mean, it's hitting our 401ks because the markets are cratering because of this inflation. And so it's a pretty tough situation. We're in a recession. The recession is going to get worse. Inflation is going to stay high. It's going to impact our retirements. So we're in for some tough economic times. And so what are the solutions? What are the solutions to this? And think about this when you vote here now in less than 4 weeks. I say solution one is we need to tear down the regulatory barriers to the oil and gas industry and cut loose the American oil and gas industry. We need to cut it loose, and get the oil and gas production up to. I think we can get it up to 14 million barrels a day, which will bring great relief to the price of oil in the United States, and therefore bring down the gas prices. But so unleash the oil and gas industry. One of the things that Biden has done is impose a lot of regulations on businesses. We need to tear down those regulations to unleash the entrepreneurial spirit of American small businesses, so they can create and grow jobs and improve the supply side of things. So we get supply matched up with demand, which will stop inflation. So reduce regulation, unleash the American oil and gas industry. Do not raise taxes. Leave the Trump tax cuts in place. Do not put tax burden on it. Repeal this whole thing with 87,000 more IRS agents. Those IRS agents are going to be a regulatory burden on small businesses. They are gonna put a hurt on small businesses. Listen, small businesses do not have the money to make sure their books are in perfect shape from a tax perspective. They're worried about making a buck and surviving. So unleash American entrepreneurialism, unleash American business, create good jobs, unleash the oil and gas industry, get out of the way. We really need to take the New Hampshire advantage concept, of the government out of the way, low taxes, and apply it to the federal government. And that'll help us get out of this economic mess. So think about that when you go to the voting booth in less than 4 weeks. And what politician, will help solve these problems. And focus on that. All this other stuff that you see in commercials and the negative ads and the attacks on people, forget about that. Think about what politician is going to go to Washington, D.C. and do a good job of getting this economy back on track. And that's who we need to vote for. So just to recap, climate change, listen to scientists on all sides of the issue. Yes, we need to take care of the planet. This extreme movement to a fossil fuel free economy, will have devastating economic impacts. By the way, more people die in the world from cold than from heat. It is draconian and I don't think necessary. And the impact of all this on the cost of our gas is a significant contributor to the inflation we're experiencing. And it impacts, everyone's wallet, what our savings, what our 401k, what the stock market's down, I think 25% this year. That impacts your 401k. Make no mistake about it. And the way to get out of this is to unleash American business, unleash the oil and gas industry, cut down the regulations. And we can do all this and take care of the earth, take care of the one earth we have. Well, listen, thanks for joining tonight. This was great. Pay attention. Go vote, go vote, go vote. And, and vote for the politicians, who understand these issues, who can talk about these issues, and who will actually get something done about these issues. Thanks again, and have a great evening. Bye-bye.